2 weeks before our wedding, my fiancée drained our joint savings account, $18,700, and left a note that said, "You'll bounce back. You always do." Then she blocked me on everything. I didn't chase her. I just called the bank. That was a year ago. Today, she showed up at my sister's baby shower, pregnant, broke, and saying, "Can we talk?" I made a mistake. I stood there, dumbfounded, surrounded by pastel decorations and the soft chatter of family and friends. The room seemed to blur around me as I tried to process her presence. Her words. "Can we talk?" she had asked, as if the past year had been nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Let me backtrack a bit. My name is Jake, and up until a year ago, I thought I had my life pretty much figured out. I was engaged to Sarah, a woman I believed was my soulmate. We met in college, and she was everything I thought I wanted. Smart, funny, supportive. We were planning a future together, and everything seemed perfect. We had a cozy apartment, a dog named Max, and dreams of a house with a white picket fence. But then, 2 weeks before our wedding, I came home to find that note. The words, "You'll bounce back," echoed in my mind like a cruel taunt. I remember feeling like the ground had been ripped from under me. My first instinct was to call her, to demand an explanation, but she had already blocked me on every platform. It was like she had vanished into thin air, leaving behind nothing but an empty bank account and a shattered heart. In the days that followed, I oscillated between anger and despair. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our relationship, trying to pinpoint where it all went wrong. I confided in my sister, Emily, who was my rock through it all. She was furious, of course, and wanted to hunt Sarah down, but I convinced her to let it be. I needed to move on, and I did, or at least I tried. I threw myself into work, took up running, and eventually, the pain dulled into a distant ache. I even started dating again, though nothing serious. Life was slowly getting back to normal, and the wound Sarah left was beginning to scar over. But seeing her at Emily's baby shower was like ripping that scar wide open. Her presence was jarring, a ghost from a past I thought I'd buried. I looked around the room, at the faces of my family and friends, all of whom were blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing inside me. "Jake?" Sarah's voice pulled me back to the present. Her eyes were pleading, and she looked different, tired, worn. The pregnancy was obvious, and I couldn't help but wonder who the father was. Part of me wanted to turn away, to ignore her like she had ignored me. But another part, the part that remembered the good times, was curious. "What do you want, Sarah?" I asked, my voice colder than I intended. She hesitated, glancing around nervously. I made a mistake," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all. A mistake? Draining our savings and disappearing was a mistake? "Jake, please," she continued, her eyes brimming with tears. "Can we talk somewhere private?" I glanced at Emily, who was watching us with a concerned expression. She gave me a slight nod, as if to say it was okay to hear Sarah out. Reluctantly, I agreed, and led Sarah to a quiet corner of the backyard, away from prying eyes and ears. As we stood there, the spring breeze rustling the leaves, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. I was about to open old wounds, to confront the woman who had betrayed me in the worst way possible, but I needed answers. I needed closure. "Why now, Sarah?" I asked, crossing my arms defensively. "Why after all this time?" She looked down, her hands resting on her swollen belly. "I was scared, Jake. I thought I wanted something else, something more, but I was wrong. I thought I could do it on my own, but I can't." Her words were like a punch to the gut. I wanted to feel sorry for her, but the anger was still too raw. "And you thought coming here to my sister's baby shower was the best way to tell me this? I didn't know where else to go," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know how to reach you." The irony wasn't lost on me. She had made sure of that when she blocked me everywhere. "Jake, I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for another chance," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Please, just hear me out." I stood there, torn between the past and the present, between anger and compassion. I knew I had to make a decision, but what that decision would be, I wasn't sure yet. For now, I needed time to think, to process, to decide if I could ever forgive her. I'll update when I can. Hey everyone, I'm back with an update, and things have taken quite a turn, thanks to everyone who reached out after my last post. Your support and words of wisdom have been invaluable as I try to navigate this mess. So, after that gut-wrenching encounter with Sarah at my sister Emily's baby shower, I found myself in a whirlwind of emotions. I'd always been the kind of person who sought closure, who needed answers to move on. But seeing Sarah, pregnant, and pleading had thrown me off balance. The past year had been a constant battle to regain my footing, and here she was, threatening to uproot everything again. After our brief and awkward conversation in the backyard, I told Sarah I needed time to think. Her eyes were filled with desperation, a stark contrast to the cold, calculated way she had left me. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story, something she wasn't telling me. But I wasn't ready to dive back into that chaos without some serious consideration. The days following the shower were a blur. I found myself replaying our conversation over and over, dissecting every word, every expression. I was back to lying, awake at night staring at the ceiling. But this time it wasn't just anger and betrayal I was dealing with, it was confusion. Part of me wanted to slam the door shut on Sarah for good. Another part, though, was curious about her story, about what had really happened. I decided to talk to Emily about it. She had been my confidant through everything, and I needed her perspective. We met for coffee a few days later, and as soon as I saw her, I could tell she was worried. "Jake, you okay?" she asked, concern etched on her face. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I don't know, Em. I thought I was moving on, but seeing her, it just brought everything back." Emily nodded, sipping her latte thoughtfully. "I get it, but Jake, you need to do what's right for you. If hearing her out will give you the closure you need, then maybe it's worth it." Her words made sense, but the thought of opening that door again was terrifying. Still, I knew I couldn't ignore it forever. I had to face it one way or another. Eventually, I reached out to Sarah. I suggested meeting up at a neutral place, a small cafe we used to frequent. It was familiar, yet distant enough from the life we once shared. When I arrived, Sarah was already there, sitting at a corner table, nervously fidgeting with her cup. "Jake?" she said softly as I approached. I nodded, taking a seat across from her. "All right, Sarah, I'm here. Talk." She took a deep breath, her eyes meeting mine. "I know I hurt you, and I can't begin to express how sorry I am." I was scared, Jake. I thought I wanted freedom, to explore life on my own terms, but I was wrong. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the Sarah I once knew, the one who was vulnerable and honest, but I couldn't ignore the pain she'd caused. "And now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Now I realize I made the biggest mistake of my life. The father of this baby. He left as soon as he found out. I thought I could handle it, but I can't. I need help, Jake. I need you." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt a mix of anger and pity, but most of all, I felt trapped. She was asking for something I wasn't sure I could give. "Sarah, you can't just walk back into my life and expect things to be the same," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You left me with nothing, and now you want my help?" She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for your forgiveness. Please, Jake. I'm lost." I sat there, my heart warring with my head. Part of me wanted to stand up and walk away, to leave the past behind and move on with my life. But another part, the part that remembered the good times, wondered if maybe, just maybe, we could find a way forward. I still don't know what to do. This is a decision I can't make lightly, and I need to be sure of what I want before I take any steps forward. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time, trying to figure out what my heart truly wants. I'll update when I can. Hey everyone, I'm back with another update. Thanks for sticking with me through this roller coaster. Your support has been a lifeline as I try to navigate this tangled mess of emotions and decisions. After my last post, I spent a lot of time reflecting on my conversation with Sarah. It was like a storm had been brewing inside me, and I couldn't seem to find any calm. I was hurt, angry, and confused. But there was also this nagging sense of unfinished business. I knew I couldn't move forward without some sort of resolution, but the path to that resolution was anything but clear. I decided I needed a plan. I've always been a methodical person, someone who likes to weigh options and consider outcomes. So I started by making a list of what I needed to do to get some clarity and hopefully some peace. First, I needed to gather more information. Sarah's sudden plea for help was suspiciously timed, and while I wanted to believe she was being genuine, I couldn't shake the feeling that there might be more to her story. I reached out to a mutual friend, Lisa, who had kept in touch with both of us after the breakup. She was reluctant at first, not wanting to get involved, but eventually agreed to meet up. Over coffee, Lisa filled me in on what she knew. "Sarah was a mess after she left," she said, stirring her drink absent-mindedly. "She thought she was chasing some dream, but it all fell apart pretty quickly." I nodded, feeling a mix of vindication and sadness. "And the father of her baby?" Lisa sighed. "He was a fling, Jake. She thought it was something more, but he bailed when things got real." Hearing this didn't make me feel better, but it did provide some context. Sarah had made a series of bad decisions, and now she was facing the consequences. But did that mean I had to be the one to help her pick up the pieces? With this new information, I moved on to the next step in my plan, seeking advice. I called up my best friend, Tom, who had been by my side through thick and thin. We met up for a beer, and as soon as I started talking, He knew something was up. "Jake, man, you've been through hell," he said, shaking his head. "But you've also come so far. Don't let her drag you back down." His words resonated with me. I had worked hard to rebuild my life, and the thought of risking it all for someone who had betrayed me was terrifying. But there was still a part of me that felt obligated to help, if only for the sake of our past. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. I was constantly torn between wanting to help Sarah and wanting to protect myself. I knew I needed to make a decision, but every time I thought I'd made up my mind, doubt would creep in. Then, an unexpected setback hit. I received a call from my landlord informing me that the building was being sold, and I had 2 months to find a new place to live. It was the last thing I needed, another complication in an already complicated situation. As I sat in my apartment, surrounded by boxes and uncertainty, I realized something important. Life was unpredictable, and I couldn't control everything. But I could control how I reacted. I could choose to let this situation break me, or I could use it as an opportunity to grow stronger. With renewed determination, I decided it was time to confront Sarah once and for all. I needed to lay everything on the table, to be honest about my feelings and my boundaries. I called her and arranged to meet at a park nearby, a neutral ground where we could talk openly. When I arrived, Sarah was already there, sitting on a bench with her hands folded in her lap. She looked up as I approached, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "Jake," she said softly, standing up as I reached her. "Sarah," I replied, my voice steady but firm. "We need to talk." I laid out everything I'd been feeling, the hurt, the anger, the confusion. I told her I understood she was in a difficult position, but that I couldn't simply forget what she had done. I needed to protect myself, to ensure I wasn't dragged back into a toxic cycle. Sarah listened, tears in her eyes, and when I finished, she nodded. "I understand, Jake. I don't expect you to forgive me overnight. I just needed you to know how sorry I am. It wasn't the resolution I had hoped for, but it was a start. We agreed to keep communication open, to see if trust could be rebuilt over time. It was a cautious step forward, but it felt right. Now, as I sit here typing this, I feel a sense of relief. The path ahead is still uncertain, but I'm no longer paralyzed by indecision. I'm taking it one day at a time, focusing on what I can control and letting go of what I can't. I'll update when I can. Hey everyone, I'm back with another update, and things have really started to shift. Your support has been incredible, and I'm grateful for everyone who's been following along and offering advice. It's been a tough road, but I'm finally beginning to see some light at the end of the tunnel. After my last meeting with Sarah, I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. It was like I'd finally taken a step towards closure, but there was still so much uncertainty looming over me. I knew I needed to focus on my own life, especially with the unexpected news about my apartment. The clock was ticking, and I had to find a new place to live. I threw myself into the search, scouring listings and visiting potential apartments. It was stressful, but it also gave me something to focus on other than the emotional chaos with Sarah. I found a cozy one-bedroom not too far from my current place, and after some negotiation, I signed the lease. It felt like a fresh start, a new chapter in my life. But as I was packing up my things, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was unfinished business with Sarah. We had agreed to keep communication open, but I hadn't heard from her since our last conversation. Part of me was relieved, but another part was worried. Was she okay? Had she found the support she needed? I decided to reach out, sending her a short text. "Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay." It was a simple gesture, but it felt significant. I didn't expect a response, but later that evening, my phone buzzed with a reply. "Thanks, Jake, I'm managing. Can we talk?" Her message was brief, but it hinted at something more. I agreed to meet her again, this time at a small park near her place. When I arrived, she was sitting on a bench, looking more composed than before. "Hey," I said, taking a seat beside her. "Hey," she replied, offering a small smile. "Thanks for meeting me." We sat in silence for a moment, watching a group of kids play on the swings nearby. It was a peaceful scene, but the tension between us was palpable. "So how are things?" I asked, breaking the silence. Sarah sighed, glancing down at her hands. "It's been tough, but I'm trying to figure things out. I've started seeing a therapist, trying to work through everything." Her admission surprised me, and I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she was serious about changing. "That's good," I said, genuinely pleased. "I hope it helps." She nodded, her eyes meeting mine. "I know I have a lot to make up for, Jake. I don't expect you to forgive me easily, but I'm trying to be better." As we talked, I realized that my anger was slowly being replaced by something else. A cautious optimism. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for us to rebuild some kind of relationship, even if it was just a friendship. But then, just as things seemed to be settling, life threw another curveball. As we were about to part ways, Sarah hesitated, her expression shifting to one of concern. "Jake, there's something else," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't know how to tell you before, but the baby might be yours." Her words hit me like a freight train, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. The world seemed to tilt, and I had to steady myself on the bench. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She looked at me, her eyes filled with regret. "I wasn't sure before, but I did the math, and there's a chance. I'm so sorry, Jake. I should have told you sooner." The implications of her confession were staggering. If the baby was mine, everything would change. I'd be a father, something I'd never even considered in this context. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. "I need time to process this," I said finally, my mind racing. "We need to figure this out, Sarah." She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I know. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to find out for sure." As I walked away from the park, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Fear, doubt, and a strange sense of purpose battled for dominance. I knew this was a turning point, and whatever happened next would define my future. I'll update when I can. Hey everyone, I'm back with what will be my final update. This journey has been a wild ride, and I can't thank you all enough for being there with me through every twist and turn. Your support has been a guiding light, helping me navigate the darkest times. After Sarah's bombshell revelation, I was left reeling. The possibility of being a father was something I had never seriously considered, and it was overwhelming. I spent the next few days in a haze, trying to wrap my head around what this could mean for my life. Determination and anxiety were my constant companions, pushing me to confront this new reality head-on. I knew the first step was to confirm the paternity. Sarah and I agreed to do a DNA test once the baby was born. It was a waiting game now, and patience was never my strong suit. In the meantime, I focused on moving into my new apartment, trying to create a space that felt like home. It was a welcome distraction, giving me something tangible to control amidst the emotional chaos. Moving day came quicker than expected. As I unpacked boxes, I realized how much my life had changed over the past year. Each item I pulled out was a reminder of the past, but it also represented a new beginning. I was determined to make this place a sanctuary, a reflection of the person I was becoming. Throughout this process, Sarah and I kept in touch. Our conversations were tentative but honest. There was a newfound openness between us, a willingness to address the past while cautiously stepping into the future. She continued her therapy sessions, and I could see the changes in her. She was more introspective, more aware of her actions and their consequences. Finally, the day came when Sarah went into labor. I was a bundle of nerves, pacing my apartment as I waited for news. When the call came, I rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. Seeing Sarah holding the baby for the first time was surreal. In that moment, everything else faded away, and all I could see was the tiny life in her arms. The DNA test results took a few days, and those were some of the longest days of my life. I was torn between hope and dread, unsure of what the future would hold. When the results finally came in, confirming that I was the father, I felt a wave of emotions crash over me: vindication, empowerment, but most of all, a profound sense of responsibility. This was it. I was a father. My life was no longer just about me. It was about this little person who depended on me. The thought was daunting, but it was also incredibly empowering. I had the chance to be the kind of parent I'd always wanted, to create a family built on love and trust. In the days that followed, Sarah and I worked hard to find a new normal. We were co-parents now, navigating this uncharted territory together. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of tension and doubt, but there were also moments of genuine connection and shared joy. We were learning to trust each other again, to communicate openly and honestly. Reflecting on everything that had happened, I realized how much I had grown. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the uncertainty, they had all been catalysts for change. I had learned to set boundaries, to prioritize my own well-being, and to embrace the unpredictable nature of life. Most importantly, I had learned the power of forgiveness, not just for Sarah, but for myself. As I sit here in my new apartment, watching my son sleep peacefully in his crib, I feel a sense of peace and fulfillment I never thought possible. The journey to this point was fraught with challenges, but it led me to a place of healing and growth. I'm not the person I was a year ago, and for that, I'm grateful. This is the start of a new chapter, one filled with promise and possibility. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm ready to face it, one day at a time. Thank you all for being part of this journey with me. Your support has meant the world, and I hope my story has resonated with you in some way. Take care, everyone. Hey, everyone. This is my final update, and I'm here to bring full closure to this chapter of my life. It's been a whirlwind, and I'm incredibly thankful for each of you who have been with me through this journey. Your support and advice have been invaluable, and I hope sharing my story has brought some insight and connection to those who needed it. After the DNA test confirmed I was the father, everything seemed to shift into focus. There was no more ambiguity, no more room for doubt. It was time to step up and embrace this new role with everything I had. Determination and anxiety were constant companions, but beneath them was a growing sense of purpose and empowerment. The first few weeks of fatherhood were a blur of sleepless nights and emotional highs. Holding my son for the first time was like nothing I'd ever experienced. A mix of awe and responsibility that left me breathless. I found myself marveling at his tiny features, his delicate fingers, and the way his eyes seemed to take in the world with such innocent curiosity. Sarah and I were navigating this new terrain together, and despite our complicated history, there was a newfound respect and understanding between us. We were co-parents, partners in this incredible journey, and it was both challenging and rewarding. There were moments of tension, sure, but also moments of shared joy that made everything worthwhile. Our communication improved significantly. We had learned the hard way that honesty and openness were crucial, and we were committed to building a foundation of trust for our son's sake. Sarah continued her therapy, and I could see the positive changes in her. She was more present, more engaged, and it was clear she was committed to being the best mother she could be. Reflecting on the past year, I realized how much I had grown. The betrayal and heartbreak had been painful, but they had also forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities and insecurities. I had learned to set boundaries, to prioritize my own well-being, and to embrace the unpredictable nature of life. Most importantly, I had learned the power of forgiveness, not just for Sarah, but for myself. Forgiving Sarah was a process, one that required patience and understanding. It wasn't about excusing her actions. It was about letting go of the anger and resentment that had weighed me down. It was about acknowledging that we were both human, capable of mistakes, but also capable of growth and change. Forgiving myself was another hurdle. I had to let go of the guilt and self-doubt that had plagued me for so long. I had to accept that I couldn't have predicted the twists and turns life would take, but I could choose how to respond. I could choose to be resilient, to learn from my experiences, and to move forward with hope and determination. Now, as I sit in my new apartment watching my son sleep peacefully in his crib, I feel a sense of peace and fulfillment I never thought possible. The journey to this point was fraught with challenges, but it led me to a place of healing and growth. I'm not the person I was a year ago, and for that, I'm grateful. This is the start of a new chapter, one filled with promise and possibility. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm ready to face it one day at a time. I have a son who depends on me, a co-parenting relationship that continues to evolve, and a life that feels richer and more meaningful than ever before. Thank you all for being part of this journey with me. Your support has meant the world, and I hope my story has resonated with you in some way. Take care, everyone, and remember that even in the darkest moments, there is always a path to healing and growth. Goodbye, and thank you.